the U.S. greenlit additional military aid to Israel after the Secretary of State Marco Rubio in March bypassed the Congress to send Israel $4 billion in arms. How does this shape Netanyahu's refusal to halt operations?
Thank you for having me, Salma. Greetings to you and to your dear guest and the audience. Of course, what the United States is doing by providing unconditional support for Israel, providing one military package after the other, unlimited political cover, and as well military supplies and economic aid. By that, the United States is basically enabling Israel to do whatever it wants. And of course, this emboldens Israeli decision makers and make them way more reluctant to engage in any serious diplomacy or interact positively with any or engage positively with any proposition for de-escalation and reaching a ceasefire agreement and detainee exchange agreement. It emboldens them in order to rendering them unable to interact positively with such endeavors. And of course, the Israelis are moving forward with their escalatory measures inside the Gaza Strip because they can, because no one is restraining them. And the only force in the world that can actually manage to restrain Israel and pressure it into taking a certain course of action is the United States. However, the Trump administration had given the Netanyahu government what is tantamount to a blank check. They can do whatever they want. They can escalate in whichever way they want. And unfortunately, we do not see any possibility of any calm or a restoration of a lull on the horizon due to the intransigence of the Israelis and the enabling attitude of the United States when it comes to dealing with the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Israel is expanding its military operation in Gaza. It's murdering dozens and sometimes over 100 people daily. Tens of thousands of people have died. Gaza has basically been wiped off the map in terms of infrastructure, and I do not know until when will this continue. However, it will continue as long as the United States enables Israel to do so.
Professor El-Raqab, with 59 detainees still held, why prioritize military escalation over negotiations, sir? Let me go back to Mr. Osman. I can't hear Dr. Raqab. Steve Witkoff, Mr. Osman, Trump's envoy, prioritizes the detainee releases over ceasefire terms. Is this a deliberate strategy to prolong Israel's military operations or not? What are your insights?
Yes, I think it is. I think that the United States is complicit in Israel's plans, actually, when it comes to Gaza. I do not believe that the Israelis independently come up with their own policies and the United States just agree to them. I think that there is instant coordination between both sides. I think that the United States as well is not looking for a definitive end to the war in Gaza. I think that the United States is still committed to implementing the so-called Trump Gaza plan, which is basically a plan of ethnic cleansing and the annihilation of the population of the Gaza Strip by ethnically cleansing them and forcefully displacing them out of the Gaza Strip. And I think that the United States is equally as enthusiastic for the implementation of these sinister schemes, just as the Israelis are. So they try always to present frameworks by which the temporary ceasefires are enacted in order to secure the release of more detainees. However, they are not remotely interested in a complete or a permanent ceasefire. Unfortunately, they have not applied any pressure on Israel, for example, so that it can interact or engage positively with the mediators, Egypt and Qatar. Qatar's last initiative, which was basically a 5-year ceasefire, negotiations over the disarmament of Hamas, the return of the Palestinian authorities, the enactment of the Arab Islamic Reconstruction Plan. Of course, the United States, it seems, is not interested in that. They are more interested in Israel's worldview when it comes to Gaza. The only things that the Americans are looking for right now is to secure the release of as many detainees as possible, especially the remaining American detainee, because by such moves, Trump can score a symbolic victory of some sorts. However, other than that, I do not think that they have a vested interest in the cessation of hostilities before a definitive defeat of Hamas, and also not without paving the way for the so-called voluntary departure of the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, which is basically a naked scheme of
Yeah.
ethnic cleansing and forced displacement.